Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 NRL season is just hours away, and bloody hell I'm excited. Mate, it's been the off-season from hell, but I'd like to think that all 16 teams are raring to go. Players switching teams, coaches switching teams, and new game plans, new attitudes. I'm excited to see how round 1 goes. Now for today's video, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be doing some tips for round 1. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to do this all the way through the season, and I don't claim to be some NRL expert, so don't expect me to get all of these right, and don't get butthurt if I don't pick your team, because it's just how it is. I'm just going to get some wrong. Anyways, here it goes. The first game, we have the Melbourne Storm taking on the Brisbane Broncos. It's in Melbourne. I think this one is going to be a very, very exciting game. I'd actually expect this one to be a pretty close game as well. Now, going into the game, before I saw the lineups, I was thinking, both teams are kind of alright. I wasn't expecting any of them to like set the world on fire or anything. But the Broncos team looks pretty strong. The Melbourne team looks pretty strong. I'm just not sure about the Storm in terms of having Billy Slater not being there. Although I'm sure Jerome Hughes would do a good job. And the rest of the side is actually very strong still. So the Storm, I think they should do pretty well this year. The Broncos as well have a pretty strong side, a new coach, a new approach to the game. So I'd expect them to do pretty well. I'm just interested to see how the Broncos actually go. Like, are they going to be super attacking? Are they going to be, like, really defensive? I'm not really sure. Seabold only had the 1 year at the Rabbitohs, so it's up in the air of how the Broncos are going to go. But if the Broncos are going to win, they need Milford and Nikorima to fire. And they need Jack Bird to sort of step up this year. Didn't really get too much of an opportunity last year, but I think he'll do well this year. I do think the Storm, however, are going to win though. I think just being in Melbourne, I think it'll be a little bit too much for the Broncos. So Storm 1-12. Next up, we have the Newcastle Knights taking on the Cronulla Sharks. It's a Knights home game. Once again, I think this should be a very exciting game. I think this is a perfect start to the season. Starting off with the Storm and the Broncos, a great start. And then following it up with the Knights and the Sharks. Two sort of sides we want to see how they're going to go. Shaun Johnson obviously moving to the Sharks, so he's going to have a lot of eyes on him. We then have the Knights who've signed a whole bunch of players, your Clemmers, your Ramians. I think for the Knights, they didn't really perform too well in the trials. The Sharks, I'm pretty sure, did play pretty well. The Sharks already have a pretty good halves combination in Johnson and Townsend who've worked together before. And that was before Townsend was like super experienced, so you'd think they'd work better now than what they did before. I think the Sharks do have a really good team still, despite all their salary cap dramas. The Knights do have a very good team as well. I have question marks over the hooker position. And for that reason, I'm actually going to go with the Sharks. I think that's going to be a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. I do really like this Knights team, but I think they'll take a little bit more time to gel. And also, I'm not really sure about Nathan Brown as a coach and Ponga in the halves. I don't know. I think they're going to take some time to gel. So I'm going Sharks 1-12. Now on to the third game of round 1. It's the reigning premiers, the Sydney Roosters, taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. No longer the opening game to the NRL season, but it does find itself still a fixture of round 1. And I'm very, very excited to see this game. We have the reigning premiers up against a team who could possibly be up there at the end of the year. Are we looking at the possible grand final for 2019? It's a very real possibility. But the Rabbitohs, they have a very strong team going into 2019. A new coach as well. Maybe a new attacking style, new defense. Who knows? They did look quite good in the Charity Shield, in my opinion. The only problem for me is when their starting props come off, their bench is a little bit weak, and that's where I think the Roosters are really going to run over the top of them. I think the Rabbitohs might match it for a little bit, but the Roosters bench is so good. Like, Angus Crichton has left the Rabbitohs to go to the Roosters, and he finds himself on the bench. That is how strong the Roosters forward pack is. Radley comes into the starting side at lock. Orbison retains his spot in the second row, which was a little bit of a surprise to me, but I can see the thought process in that. I mean, you have Crichton come on up against his old club, and he's going to be coming on fresh against, you know, some tired Burgess brothers or even some bench forwards. So I do think the Roosters will end up running away with this in the end. But yeah, the Roosters, they have such a good side. They're easily the best team in the comp, in my opinion. I've already backed them to go back-to-back. But can the Rabbitohs, do the Rabbitohs have anything to say to that? We'll find out on Friday. So I don't know. I don't think they will this game, but maybe down the line. But for this game, I'm going to go Roosters 1-12. Next up is the New Zealand Warriors taking on the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. So I'm just going to start this off by saying the Bulldogs are my team, so there's going to be a lot of bias here. However, I saw the Warriors team a few days ago, and I wasn't even thinking about them taking on the Bulldogs, but their team, like on paper, looks actual garbage. And I know Isaac Luke isn't playing, and a few other players aren't playing, but yes, they just really do not look good at all. Shaun Johnson, a big loss for them. And, you know, they got a rookie half. Even with Shaun Johnson, I think they would struggle big time. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Blake Green goes, considering he's now going to be the main half. I don't think he's ever really been that. The Bulldogs, I think they have a really exciting team. In terms of on paper, they have a lot of attacking flair. Even like the Warriors to an extent do as well. But I think the Bulldogs should be a team that attacks very well. It's just a matter of whether their defense is going to be good, because we know they have leaked points on the edges. I do think Knapp is going to have a really strong start to his Bulldogs career. And I think the Bulldogs forwards will just get them over the line. So I'm going Bulldogs 13 plus actually, just because of how many points they score. Next up, we have the West Tigers taking on the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. Now, I just got done talking about the Warriors looking like shit on paper. These two teams aren't much better, if not worse. In fact, I'd say the Manly team even worse. The Tigers don't look good either. I'd say very, very average. A lot of no-names, in my opinion. They haven't really got any star players, and I know that's not necessarily a bad thing, but they don't really have any player you can rely on if the times are tough. Josh Reynolds finds himself in reserve grade, which is a bit of a surprise, but also not a surprise at all, if that makes sense. But yeah, Luke Brooks, I think, is their star player. They need to rely on Luke Brooks. He needs to fire for this game. He needs to lead them around, because I'm not really sure who will. Ryan Madison should do a good job for them. But yeah, no Chris Lawrence as well, so lacking a little bit of leadership. For Manly though, Tom Trbojevic, massive loss. If Tom Trbojevic plays, I'd pick Manly in a heartbeat, but he's not, obviously. They still do have Jake there. Cherry Evans, they got a lot more star power, but they also got like some really sort of dodgy sort of players as well. So I think Tigers all around their team's a little bit more consistent. So I'm going to go with the Tigers 1-12. Next up, we have the North Queensland Cowboys taking on the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Now this game, I'm actually having a really tough time picking who's going to win. Now obviously I have picked a winner, but I mean the Cowboys playing at home, usually very tough to take on, but no Thurston this year. I know they didn't do too well with Thurston last year, and they have managed without Thurston in the past, but just knowing that they're not going to have him at all should be a big change for him. And also their back line is completely different as well. Justin O'Neill finds himself back in the team. He didn't play very well last year. A new halves combination, new fullback. They've got a lot of new players coming into the side, so it might take a little time to gel, if it ever gels. Josh Maguire finds himself on the bench as well, which is a bit of a weird one in my opinion. Onto the Dragons though, obviously a really shit preseason for them. Nothing really they could do too much about. I mean, the DeBellin stuff is what it is. He's not playing today, or not playing when they play. In the Charity Shield, they didn't look that good in my opinion. The halves didn't really gel too well. Corey Norman, not the biggest fan of Corey Norman as a halves player. But, I mean, he should be able to do a decent job. And I do think they still have the better forward, or not the better forward pack, but I just think overall their team should be good enough to get the job done against the Cowboys. It's not like they've got a whole bunch of new additions into the side. The guys who have kind of been playing with each other for a little while. Also, something that Clarky's column pointed out is that the Dragons usually start very well, and they usually go on a bit of a streak at the start of the season, and then they have the downfall at the end of the season. So, as it is round one, I think they'll hit the ground running, and I think the Dragons will win 1-12. Next up, we have the Penrith Panthers taking on the Parramatta Eels. So for this one, I do think there is an obvious winner. I think there is a difference in class between these two sides. However, I think the Parramatta Eels will be able to match it with the Penrith Panthers for a little while. I do think the Penrith Panthers will run away with it in the end. But I do think a guy like Ferguson will make a big difference to the Eels side. I think, you know, Mitchell Moses and Corey Norman didn't work out, but Moses, he might be able to handle it with a new halves partner. We'll see how Dylan Brown goes. A new hooker as well. The forward pack's kind of reinforced a little bit with Paulo coming in, Sean Lane there as well. So I do like some of the Eels players. I don't know about their team as a whole. Bit inconsistent for me. But the Panthers, they're also known to be a bit of a slow starters. They've had a really shit off-season. I was talking about the Dragons having a bad off-season. Penrith Panthers had an off-season worse than anybody in my opinion. But I am sure that might spur them on. Well, I'm not sure, but it could spur them on. Could also destroy them as well. Who knows? But I am going to pick the Penrith Panthers to win 13+. Then finally, we have the Gold Coast Titans taking on the Canberra Raiders. Now, this is the last game of the round, and when I was thinking about it, I was going, yeah, Titans win this one easy. The team on paper, very, very strong. However, I don't think I can write off the Raiders. I don't think they're going to have, like, a brilliant season, but Josh Hodgson is such a good player. He's kind of like Cameron Smith to the Storm. As long as you got Hodgson in the side, I think they can do a job. Whether they'll get the win here, I'm not exactly sure. But I do think they have a very good side. Both sides, well, a very good side in attack is what I'm going to say. I think both sides, the Titans and the Raiders, have very good attacking outfits. One place I think the Titans do have the clear advantage is in the spine. I mean, you look at the Raiders, they have like a very inexperienced spine. Even Whiten, he has played fullback, but now he's playing 5'8". And he has played 5'8 before, but he didn't look very good. Caesar has been awful the last few years. Hodgson is the real standout there. But, I mean, the Titans, they've still got Nathan Peets, former New South Wales hooker. Ash Taylor, probably your future Queensland halfback. Tyrone Robertson, Ash Taylor have a very good combination. You've got Mick Gordon at the back there, Brimson on the bench. I think that's where the Titans are going to win it, and I think they're going to win well. So I think it's going to be 13+. Anyway, guys, those are my tips for round 1. Leave in the comment section below what were your tips for round 1. Also, make sure if you did happen to enjoy the video, go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke on YT. My Facebook page is in the description below as well. And my Snapchat, add me on that as well, Mr. Luke on YT. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to end the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.